should be flashing. All right.
Good to go.
And we're back.
And we're back. All right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So at that point in the trail, instead
I'm
of
free now.
like a dirt trail next to the rocky creek, crossing back and forth, and then just having to hike up the creek, the trail turned into, it was all rock at this point because we were getting high in the mountain. So it was all rock, and that's what Austin was talking about, is it was like the creek had cut through the rock, so the trail climbed up the rock, and the creek kept going through a lower part of the rock, so you were up a little bit higher.
So like you were walking on a ledge of
Yeah.
rock?
Yeah, it was like a
Yes.
ledge of rock, because
And it was only that wide that you're talking about,
Right.
that you
Yeah, it
had
was
to
very-
keep yourself
very narrow.
on before you would jump, you would drop down
Yeah.
the river.
if you were to have someone walk by you, you'd have to like scrunch up against the wall and
up against the side of the mountain.
Yeah, the
'cause it
side of
was
the
like
mountain. That's what it was. The mountain. We were up the side of the
Yeah.
mountain. We were at the foothill. We were at the very bottom, the base of the mountain.
This is the part I don't want to hear about.
And so we had to like scrunch up, let someone by, and we encountered another crew. And I remember also one more thing about that crew is that we went. They stopped and waited for us to go through. They let us by instead of letting them go through us.
Usually, if you're staff and you're hiking, you step off to the side and let the crew go through, so the crew can keep their momentum.
But they were already stopped.
But
I
they
believe.
had stopped when
Yeah.
they found us.
And-
we
In
found
the
them.
rain and the hail. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember at this point there was a river crossing, and there were like two large rocks on each side of the river where you had to like go and like climb on one, then climb on the other, and then get back to the other side. It was like not like wall jump. It was like you had to do some bouldering and climbing over to get over the river. Like it was.
There
you
was
know,
supposed to be like bigger, flatter step stones to cross it, but
Mhm.
because by this point it was probably at
flooded.
least a foot flooded.
At least.
If you were gonna try to step on that, you'd slip off the rock and fall in. So, yeah, we had to like climb and jump across a rock,
Yeah.
and then there was like a tree and like a log
It was-
that fell over.
It was just
It was kind of a mess to get through it. without
And there
falling.
was, I remember also, there was a crew, there was so many of them that, you know, you can't all bundle up at one spot. They were spread out along the trail. So I remember going through, over the river, and moving past, and some of the crew had stopped where they were, you know, right where they were hiking. So some of them were like right in the middle of these big rocks and stuff, and just like scattered throughout the trail. And like on these rocks, just waiting to get the go ahead to keep on hiking. But yeah, what the problem with the crew was, I remember something about an advisor, but
I have it still
Kira's
on my
got
phone.
that.
I wrote it all down.
Kira's got the
to let
details
Black
about what
Mountain
happened
know.
to this crew.
Their crew number was 723 7B. They were going from Black to North Fork Uraka camp. There were 2 adults and 4 kids. The injured adult's initials was FD. His right ankle was sprained going downhill, stepping over a rock.
So there was somebody injured.
Yeah, so
an injured advisor with tan. I remember tan frog tongs. He had tan frog tongs, like, head to toe, like tan, like this, like more. Tan. If you
frog
can get
tongs.
more tan than this, that's what it would be colored. Like,
it was like beige.
yeah, it was like a brighter this color. And it was. I remember that.
Frog togs?
Frog Togs is a brand of rain repellent gear
rain
that
gear
is made of
that-
paper mache. No, not really,
Very useful.
but the paper
But
mache.
essentially,
It's
They rip.
the durability of it is as a paper mache.
You start your trek with your rain gear being frog togs, and you end your trek with your rain gear being duct tape.
Gotcha.
Mhm. That's a really good explanation
That's
of frog togs.
that's frog togs. I should write their commercials.
They would
Frog
appreciate
togs turns into duct tape.
Yeah, you need a jingle for that too.
it. Started with the duct tape from the get-go and do it.
Now, I may like to remind the audience and the camera people watching this that you know, at home, that this whole time it's raining.
Oh
and
yeah,
lightning
raining.
and thunder and hail and whatever other precipitation you could think of.
other than snow.
It's
Snow.
Never
constant
snowed.
and heavy.
Constant, yeah.
Wind? Was it very windy?
In the valley, the wind would like cut through, but sometimes you get a breeze, but it wasn't.
It
Not
wasn't
too bad.
too bad.
Oh, good.
It wasn't
That'd
terrible.
That'd make it so
As
much
we,
worse.
if we kept going, we didn't really get that cold.
Because you stay warm, so you're soaking wet, but it's like warm wet, so
Yeah.
you're just like
Like a hot tub.
warm while you're walking.
Like a
Like a hot tub.
Yeah, it's like a hot tub inside your rain jacket.
Jacuzzi.
Less without the jets though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have
Well,
rail.
we have the
The hail
river.
and the rivers.
Yeah,
That one.
kinda
so
did
there
have
you go.
jets.
Close enough.
Basically a hot
make the
tub.
best situation of whatever you can. Whatever situation you're in. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that one. Anyway.
Yeah, but we were hiking, so we're like up on like the side of this rock, and the river's cutting through on the bottom, so it's a narrow pass. And we came up to this crew, and we were gonna stop and step to the side, and I was in the front, so I was like, "Hey guys, how you doing? What crew are you?" Because you greet the crews, because you let them know your staff. It like makes them feel,
More
Better.
secure.
Safer.
It's morale too.
and it's nice too. They're not gonna go home and be like, "Oh, that Phil staff was just so boring," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, morale. It helps them because you're like,
Yeah.
"Hey guys, how you
'Cause-
doing?" They're like, "Oh, they're having a good time.
We can
We're
have
having a good time too."
You're sitting there hiking in like this, like those terrible conditions. You think you're just having a terrible time,
Yeah.
and then someone comes up to you all happy and just.
It
they
picks
love
you up.
Okay, I can
it
do
just
this.
it just puts you like it just.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a breath of fresh air. It just switches you up a little bit.
Yeah,
Gives
so I-
it a little boost.
I was gonna like step to the side, and I kind of turned back, and I was like, "There's a crew," and I stepped to the side, and I was like, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And I noticed they were spaced out awkwardly, which kind of happens when you're hiking because you don't want to be right on people, especially with like all the river crossings and stuff. So I didn't really pay any mind to that until they stopped, and they were like, "You guys go ahead, you pass," and we were like, "No, we're staff. We'll wait for your crew to go so you can all stay together." And they said to me, "No, it's okay. We're split up already anyways." And that was a huge red flag to me because it's terrible weather. It's a challenging part of the trail. And so I was like, "What do you mean you're split up? You're supposed to hike together." I was, giving them the ranger encouragement. So I was like, "We're supposed to hike together as a crew. Why are we split up?" And that's when they said, "Oh, we have an advisor that got injured, so that part of the crew's hiking slower, and we're a little bit of ahead, just so we can get to
have
camp
no
and
one
set
else."
up," which you're not supposed to do. So then Kira freaked out
Of course.
and took down all their
Yeah, so I
information.
was like, alright, you guys keep working your way to the camp that you're expected to be at. I will write down your information and let Black Mountain know and have them radio it in so that they know where you are and can be aware of if anything
Help if
happens,
needs be, yeah.
what's up.
Yeah, so we let that group of boys keep hiking past us. We passed them, they kept hiking. And then we came across the second part of the crew, which had the injured advisor there. So we talked to him. Kira took down, what happened and everything so she could let Black Mountain know.
Yeah.
And then
That's-
they kept stumbling along.
Yeah, and then they kept going, and we kept on hiking.
Yeah.
I do remember at this point, I think it was, we gained some distance now, and we want to say we're about 1.5 miles out. And Black Mountain, when we say there's camps, there's camps all over Philmont, obviously, but some of the camps are really awkwardly shaped, so one could be like, there could be like a long sliver of camp. So the cabin would be at the back, and then there's campsites all like almost like a 1/2 mile down. I know Poneal is a huge camp. It's one of the biggest camps on the ranch, or at least North Country, and that camp itself is a mile long, like a 1/2 mile long to a mile long. It's huge. There's like 20 or 30 campsites, and it spans over a long distance. So I remember we got to a camp sign, and when we got to the campsite, I remember it actually did let up. The storm did let up for a little bit. We got to a camp sign, which is when you get to any camp, there will be a small piece of wood with a laminated poster on it, and that poster has the camp map on it. It'll tell you where bear bags are, latrines, sumps, any buildings or water sources, and just the geography and everything. And it was always like, it's like posted on the outside of every camp, on every trail going out in or out of camp. Excuse me. And we got to it, and we were all excited. We found it, and we started walking up, and we started seeing bear cables. And I was like, "We're here."
We
got
saw the
there.
burrows too.
Yeah, we saw the burrow. We saw the burrow pen, which is burrows
Oh,
are the
okay. The animal
donkeys.
burrow.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
2 burros, which
Yeah.
they're supposed to use for hiking their food and stuff in and out of the camp because there's no roads for the cars to bring them their supplies. They say that they were too much of a hassle, so they just hiked their own stuff in
They had a
and
stubborn
took
burrow.
care of the burros just because
They were just
they
there.
were there.
And then we saw the burrow pen.
So you're thinking we're here.
Yeah, we're thinking we're here, and the storm had let up a little bit, so I thought, "Oh, the storm's over, good, we'll get to Black Mountain, we're almost here, we're gonna eat dinner, have fun, go back over the mountain, go home at night." And at this point too, we were thinking, oh, Charlie and Nathan have probably started out, and they're gonna have good weather to hike in.
Yeah.
Because Charlie and Nathan were gonna come up and meet us there.
Yeah, Charlie's our, like I said before, our
Ranger
ranger trainer, and Nathan was another guy, and me and Cassie's TC, our training crew, and they were planning to come up that day too, but they started after us.
Yeah, they had something to.
Something happened. I can't remember. I think Charlie had some ranger trainer business or something. I can't remember for the life of me what it was. But we went up through the camps. We started seeing tents and stuff, and it started getting light out. And we were excited. We were like, we're here. We've endured this challenge, this storm. We described it as type 1.5 fun, because you have type 1 fun where it's like going to a water park or an amusement park where you go there and you ride the ride and you eat cotton candy and you're having fun and you look back on it as in having fun. Type 2 fun is when you are
absolutely miserable
the whole entire time, but you look back on it and you were like, man, that was so much fun. Even though I was miserable at the time looking back on it, I'm so glad I did that. Similar to Black Mountain. But type 1.5 fun is like our experience, where you have fun doing it, but while you're miserable. So we were miserable in terms of like conditions of like my feet were wet, we're soaked to the bone, we're shivering, we're cold.
Stepping up the rock 2 steps and sliding back down 3.
Exactly.
And then scraping your knee.
Mm-hmm. And it's just when you're like miserable, but the people around you are keeping you upkeep, are making you happy. You're having fun doing well. You're having fun and being miserable at the same time. I can't explain it in words or a verbal explanation. It's type 1.5.
Totally makes sense.
You look, but at the end of the day, you look back on it and you're like, man,
I'm so glad.
that was such a great time. So
But
you guys
wait,
bonded, obviously.
we're only halfway.
this is So we get to Black Mountain, we enter the camp, and this was during the Phil Fiesta. And now Black Mountain, their camp is each camp uses a theme. So like Tonio is like a dude range, like cowboys and stuff. Some places like homesteading, like old style, and this place was a Civil War camp. So they all wore onesies, like unis, I think they call them. They wore these bright red.
We've seen the video.
Yeah, bright red one-piece pajamas with like the flaps in the butt. That kind of like you see in a cartoon, like a Bug Bunny cartoon or whatever. And so it was that style, and they all were wearing them. So we get to camp, and we see tents, we see people, we see Adirondacks, and we're like, we're here, and we smell food cooking, we smell fire and wood, and we smell safety is what it was. Like
and
we smell
and
salvation.
a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at this point, I remember we started running.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, we're here! Because we were hungry and wet and cold.
And as soon as we said we're here, a door flings open, smacks open from Black Mountain Cabin.
Can I interject?
Go ahead.
Okay. So yes, swings door open, and they're like, who's hungry? And we're like, yes! We're so hungry!
Because they had just cooked all their food that they had for the Phil Fiesta, so it was hot and ready, like a little Caesar pizza. It was good to go.
But just as a little side note, I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat anything that ever was an animal. And as soon as they asked us if we were hungry, and we come running up to the door, so now we're like throwing off the backpack, running to the door, ready to like just, eat with them.
One interjection. I wanted to mention that as soon as how this image burned in my brain that's hilarious, I'll never get out, is that we see Black Mountain and you see smoke coming out of it, like a little smoke coming out of the chimney, and you see Black Mountain, this old wooden cabin, like just kind of not run down, but just small, old.
It's a shack.
And in front of you, there was like rain and a river flooding and just terrible things, lightning and thunder. And out of all this disparity, you see a old wooden metal hinged door fling open, and a large man, not large, about a little bigger than me, a little bit more burly, with the red onesie, like cotton red, like all the way up and down, footsie red onesie, with a black headband, a huge burly handlebar mustache. This man, like I said, like the red and all that, pajamas, big old burly mustache and a headband, busts out the door and says, "Who's ready to eat?" And we were like, "We are." So that's when we got to the cabin. But just that image of a bright red, burly man in pajamas saying, "Let's eat," an old wooden cabin. Just
Brighten our day.
sits in my heart, you know.
But I think what Austin forgets, because Austin was so excited about the food, is that happened, and then we all started running up to the cabin, ready to eat, so excited, greeting them, thanking them for cooking. And the next thing that man said to us was, "I hope no one's a vegetarian." And my heart sunk because we did not bring very much food. And so I was like, "Actually, I am a vegetarian." And he was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Oh, all we made was meat." I was like, "You guys don't have potatoes or corn or anything?" And they were like, "Well, we have corn and potatoes." And I was like, "I'll just eat that." And they were like, "Yeah, but we put ham in it."
So that's
I forgot about that. Because I get like bacon wrapped sausage and all that other stuff. Like,
That sounds so good.
Meat wrapped meat, and they just like aluminum foiled the table and just slapped these like pots and pans of just meat.
it was like eating there was like have you ever seen a cartoon of like someone eating corn on the cob or like a beaver eating like gnawing at a tree and you see like wood chips like flying out the side of the mouth, like that's how I felt, was just chewing into stuff. And then we got there and my feet were terribly soaked, and I think all our feet
Our
were
boots
soaked.
had puddles in them.
Yeah,
like,
I was
we dumped
drinking
them out
water,
and wrung out
so-
our socks.
I remember at that point I was cold.
You were very cold.
I was very cold.
He was borderline hypothermic and did not stop shivering for at least an hour. And I sat there thinking, please do not get hypothermia here. This is not the place to do this.
Yeah.
There's no way a car, you would have to hike back through all this weather for several miles before you could get to a car that could take you back to base. If they could even get back here with all this rain, the cars can't get to the backcountry very easily in this weather. I'm like, please don't die.
But I didn't.
That's
Little do you know that you're actually Princess Leia and you did some sort of like
I did some
stupid magic.
I did some sorcery, and I embodied
I hate
Dungeons and
that
Dragons, and I my constitution, my heart endured it, and I survived. I rolled really well. So anyway, we get there, we start eating stuff, and they have like
Well, you
their
guys-
wood burner, and
We got there, and you guys like kicked off your shoes right away and put bags on your feet.
yeah, we put plastic baggies on our
our
feet
feet.
because our socks were wet. Now I had the bright idea. Let me interject here for a second on myself. There's these wonderful things called the 10 Essentials, where it's like, if you go out in the backcountry, 10 Essentials: brand compass, map, water, food, first aid kit, the 10 essential things to survive in these kind of conditions. I brought like 4 of them, 5 of them, half,
Maybe.
50%. That's like passing grade. I brought all the navigation equipment we needed, like compasses and maps and stuff. I always bring socks because in my camping experiences, even here in Ohio or anywhere, I always bring extra socks with me no matter where I go, extra clothes. So I brought socks, like wool socks and stuff, but they were at the bottom of my pack where, there's this thing called gravity, and when water goes to gravity, it goes to the bottom of things. Even though I have a pack cover on, so I seep through. So my socks were soaked. And they were not soaked, they were damp, moist, whatever. So I had
Not dry.
Not dry. Well, yeah, they were wet at some point. So I was like trying to dry my most dry socks out more to like put them on. But at this point we were eating and stuff, and we were getting warm in the cabin, and the Phil Fiesta had begun. And which I'm sure in the video that you recorded began the Black Mountain Fitness Camp. And I didn't care about hypothermia or being cold because I didn't wear my rain gear. We just went out in the rain in my Ziploc bag socks, my Ziploc bag feet, and we started having a Phil Fiesta, like working out and stuff like that. Like a axe handle on a rope on a tree where you do pull-ups and stuff, and like started like benching benches and stuff. And it was a great time. Yeah.
Probably helped the hypothermia to
Yeah, it was.
You're only halfway through.
So that was like you guys shoved food in your face because it was already made, and then you got to like do the
All the
Black
things.
Mountain Fitness Club Phil Fiesta excitement.
I just watched. I was not about to lay down.
You were recording it.
I was not about to lay down.
That's right, she used to
on
hand the
that,
camera.
those
Yeah.
wet logs
Yeah.
and try to bench this log.
I tried
that
to.
But while this is happening, I am frantically trying to figure out what I'm going to eat.
You should just give me
Because
for the
I
day.
had a very short, quick lunch 6 hours ago, and now I'm starving and cold. So I borrowed somebody's backpacking jet boil stove, and Kira was smart enough to bring what is it,
Fettuccine Primavera.
which is like, it's just mac and cheese basically,
but with vegetables.
Fancy mac
with
and
like
cheese.
some vegetables in it. So there was no meat, so I
I
couldn't
do
that.
Trail
fancy
food.
mac and
Yeah,
cheese.
Trail food. Yeah, trail
freeze-dried
food.
trail food.
Yeah, freeze-dried trail food. And so while they're like having fun and eating, I am huddled under like this little teepee tarp thing that they had set up, and I like had my boots off, and I'm just like curled up with this jet boil trying to rehydrate this impossibly rehydratable dehydrated fettuccine primavera. And they're running around having a nice Phil Fiesta, and I'm eating crunchy fettuccine primavera, laughing my butt off because the Black Mountain Phil staff
We're so
was
cool.
absolutely cabin crazy at this point.
They were hilarious. They were so
funny.
And I remember like trying to bench the bench, and I just couldn't do it. And I remember like doing pull-up stuff. It was like a bunch of pictures of me like attempting doing terrible attempts at exercise. And then I remember there was one point where we all like sat there and were like, "Hey, where's Charlie and Nathan?"
Yeah.
And we didn't know, and they didn't make it.
They hadn't showed up yet.
I mean, they made it. They were live. They just didn't make it to Black Mountain Camp. That is what it meant.
Yeah, had they left?
Yeah, so it turns out they
Well,
had...
we didn't know for sure because we didn't have signal, but they told us that they were going to leave like a couple hours after us, so we didn't know if they didn't leave yet, or if they left and they turned around, or if they left and they stopped somewhere else because of the weather. So we had no idea. We just knew. they
Do we
weren't
talk
in Black
about
Mountain.
later when we found out where they were?
Yes.
Yeah. So where do we keep the suspense?
I don't know.
It's not really suspense. It's a small detail.
Yeah, so later we find out they had made it to Miners Park Camp.
That's the
which-
one at the bottom of the river? Or?
No,
This is-
It's on like the other side.
Yeah, so we hiked up one
Oh.
side and down. They were hiking from
On the other side, gotcha.
from the turnaround on that side. And they made it to Miners Park and decided that the weather was not safe enough to keep hiking, so they just stayed there for the night. They ended up volunteering to go help Miners Park check the North Fork Uraka camp, because Base had told all the camps in their area of responsibility to go to the trail camps by rivers to make sure that the crews were camping far enough away from the river in
Get
case of
washed
flash
away.
floods. And so they went out with one of the guys from Miners Park to go check on these crews at this camp. And the crew that we had run into still hadn't made it. And we're listening to this over the radio, so the guy from Miners Park had a radio with him to let them know that there was one crew that still hadn't made it. So now they're having to run a hasty to go find this crew. And we have the information of where they are. They're still on the river somewhere trying to get to that camp. And I tell Black Mountain, and they say they're not going to call it in, and they're just going to let them go find these people. And, oh well.
So Charlie and Nathan are on a wild goose chase.
Not
And
knowing where to
not
look.
knowing
Looking
where
for
they
the crew
are.
that we knew where
Where
they
they
were
were.
at.
Why wouldn't they tell us?
We don't really know.
Black Mountain didn't want to interject. I think they didn't want to end up having to also go out on a hasty. So I think they were being a little bit lazy.
Yeah.
Because it was their Phil Fiesta and they didn't want to have to go out on a hasty. Because if they were like, hey, base camp, this is Black Mountain and we know where that crew is, base camp would have been like,
Go
awesome, go
get
find them.
them.
Get them to their camp. But they didn't want to do that. So they were like, we'll let them, they'll find
They'll
them.
find
There's only one way they could have gone. They'll find them.
They did end up finding
They got it
them
like
a few
9:30.
hours later as they're hiking through the dark trying to find this crew in the rain.
In the creek.
In the creek.
Remember, they're in the creek.
But, so Charlie
And
and
an
Nathan
injury.
are out there
And with
helping.
an injury.
with
Really
this.
want to go to Philmont.
Yes, it's wonderful.
It's a
Oh, this is
beautiful
all.
place.
This is one of the highlights of my whole entire summer.
yeah.
I
One of
mean,
the highlights of my
but-
life.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So then, after all this happened and the film fiesta had died down and people
Yeah,
went back to
coming.
their camps and stuff, this whole time it was still raining, it was like a mist now. It had actually let up for a while. And it wasn't
There was a
like,
crack of sun for a few minutes.
yeah,
ago.
there was. It got real nice out just for a little bit. And we kind of rehydrated. We were
drying our
eating,
stuff near the
drying our-
stove.
Yeah, we were drying our stuff out. We were in our walk around bags.
We had food.
Yeah, it was good. It was nice and warm. And then it was just for a couple hours. It was good. And then we were like, all right, we need to get going back to base camp because we have to work tomorrow.
So we start gathering our stuff.
Yeah, so we begin to gather our stuff. And I don't remember how this whole part went, but it went along the line. We have to get back to base camp. And then there was a large crack of thunder and a big flash and a bright flash of lightning.
Flash of lightning.
That-
Down into the valley where we
Yeah,
are.
and I think a Black Mountain employee or staff was there. He said, yeah, that's hit the mountain.
Yep.
You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, he watched it hit the top of Black Mountain, which I was going to hike over.
Yeah.
On the way back
Because
to
we were
base camp.
gonna go up and then hike over, then back to the base camp. So we're gonna hike through the night, and which is you're supposed to do anyway. But we were like, we're rangers, whatever. And so,
We're cool.
We had
can
a
do
We're
it.
plan.
fine.
and so when they told us that, we were like, okay, well we can't get back to, we need to get base camp because
We have an 8 a.m.
We have 8
I have a
a.m.
crew. He's my alternate.
yeah.
If
so
I don't make it and he doesn't make it,
Yeah.
it's
Super
gonna look
awkward.
real
if
bad.
she doesn't get there, I gotta take her place.
Yeah.
But I wasn't gonna get there either. So what's gonna happen? So like, all right, don't worry about it. We'll call you in. So at this point, they said Black Mountain Base Camp. We have a what's the code for a message? It was like we have a
Is it a 10-13?
1013 or something like that. There's like codes for radio code. You know, and you say you have like a 10-4 means okay or confirm. 10-7 means this or whatever. So I just remember at Black Mountain, we were all sitting there around this like there table, a small table by the fire, and the radio's above, like, in front of us, and the guy's like in his onesie. All of us are still in our onesies with the radio, and he says, "Black Mountain Base Camp." And he says, "This is base camp. Go ahead, Black Mountain. We have a 1013." And then the guy next to him turns to us and he goes, "That means it's a message." And he goes, "We have a 1013 for the ranger office. Copy. Go ahead. We have 3 rangers here at Black Mountain Camp that will not be able to make it to their 8 a.m. meeting the next morning," or something along the lines. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what they said. But we have 3 rangers here that will not be making it to the 8 a.m. meeting because they will not be able due to weather, they will not be able to traverse or make it back to base camp. And they said, they took all of our name tags. And they said, we'll read them off the names. So they read all of our names off, like full names.
Over the
So they
entire
said-
entire camp.
So anytime there's a radio transmission to the camp, everyone who has a radio
We'll hear it.
will hear it. So my name went over the radio, Kira's name went over the radio, and Cassie's name went over the radio. But not as Cassie, it was as
Cassandra.
And Cassie was just like, the whole time when she heard Cassandra, it's like,
Because now the whole ranch knows we made a terrible decision. The whole ranch knew this flash flood was going to happen. And they were saying, like, be careful. And I was like, I'm going over to Black Mountain. I'm hiking this mountain. We're getting there. I don't care. And now all of our names are on the radio as these genius rangers.
yeah. And anyone
Made a
who's our
great
friend
decision.
throughout the camp, like, I have a friend who was my ranger back when I was a crew member in 2015, worked at French Henry, and so her name's Hannah. And when I saw her again, like after this event, she was like, "Oh yeah, I heard your name on the radio like 3 weeks ago." And I was like, "Yep, that was me."
We became those rangers
Yeah.
that were over the radio during that storm stuck
was
at Black
us.
Mountain.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Do you need to stop it?
Okay. Hold.